How's that, everyone? It's that time of the week again. It's my turn to show you how I like to fish for live bait. Um, yeah, I'm a little bit different to Ben. I do slide, but I do prefer throwing a bait, especially nowadays with the grinders and everything else. And the areas I tend to fish are closer, the holes are closer to you, so you don't have to go as far. You've got a little bit more contact with your bait, you know where it is, you know where you've placed it, those sorts of things. So for me, I prefer throwing a bait. So I'll run you through quickly what I do. It's actually quite simple. I actually quite like this hook. This is the bottom line, this is the inline circle. They've also got the demon. So those are the two there. Depending on the size of your bait, I like an 8-toe generally. I like a bigger bait, so an 8-toe works for me. So I'll show you the difference of the two now. I quite like this long shank of the so-called inline circle, even though the demonic is inline. So there's what they call the demonic. Very nice hook, very much like a tuna circle, kamikatsu, something like that. It's a finer wire hook, so for the smaller baits it'll carry them better. This is a slightly thicker hook, but they're such brilliant high carbon hooks at the moment that they are very, very light and still very strong. So I find this hook works well for me. I just like the shape. I don't know why, it seems to set well for me. Maybe it's just the style of fishing I do. Lots of people have had great success on it. So that being said, we'll start off at the hook end. Needle line, I prefer stiffer when fishing for live baits. Don't go too soft. So if you can go fluoro, is great. This is 0.75. I muddle between 0.7 and 0.80. So what's this at the moment? This is about 55 pound, and the 0.75 in the T line. So what I'll do is just take a length of that, probably a meter. And then snip it, because you're gonna cut back and tie and all those sorts of things. And then on the hook end, simple figure of 8, snell sort of thing. And then pull it down, let it settle itself, wet it, and then cinch it with the tag end. And it comes down to like that. And then you can just push it up, down a little bit, and that's what you're left with. It's literally as simple as that. Sometimes you can go a little bit more, a little bit less. People have different snells that they use and those sorts of things. I'll probably end up with cutting a little bit shorter. So it's a rough idea. For me, it depends on the length of the area that I'm fishing. If the hole's a bit deeper, I'll go a little bit longer. If it's a bit shallower, I shorten things up. But it's nice to have a little bit longer. So you're going to end up with a trace about between 50, nothing less than 50 centimeters, and you don't have to go over a meter. I'll show you one now. So then I grab a swivel, whatever, this is just a number 1 stainless power swivel. Anything strong enough is the biggest thing. I'm going to grab 2 of those. I quite like those stainless swivels because my stuff gets left in my box a lot. Then a little swivel with a bead, and that's going to be your running swivel for the sinker. I'll show you now. Now you can do this, lots of people make them with swivels and earbuds. I don't know if Ben showed you that yet, or they just put a bead on either side of a normal barrel swivel or something like that, so you can put a bead on. Also, these glow beads are very effective to put on the bait end by the hook. I don't often do that, but you can. I like fishing quite natural, but it can be very, very effective, especially in the later evenings. If you glow them up, it makes that bait stand out about the crowd. Right, so straight on to the swivel here. So just straight on, normal figure of 8 or whatever knot you tie, whatever you're comfortable with. Just remember, cinch it down before you pull it out. Now, you can modify this and use exactly the same trace and put a J hook at the end, or you can put double J's. It depends on the way you like to hook up the bait. I'll have an extra clip at the end about actually bridling the bait as well. So this trace specifically I like to bridle. So you end up with your trace there. Quite a long, see if I can get it in, quite a long piece, but that's for movement on the bait. So then we'll take another piece of 0.7. Can be a little bit difficult to throw. You've got to almost lob it, but you get the hang of it quite quickly. Oftentimes you are throwing this on a heavier setup, so generally longer rods and those sorts of things. So another piece of line to the top of the saw. Like I said, and if you're using fluoro, then you can just replace the hook snoot piece with fluoro rather than the whole thing. And then I like to make my piece up to my main line a little bit longer. If you're fishing straight mono, you could probably get away with tying it straight to your leader and put it on the thing, on the running swivel. So there, you've got the running swivel line through it, so then it can move up and down the line nice and freely. So this is going to be a limited slide. It's going to be limited between the two swivels. I like these ones with the bead because it means there's less stuff that you have to carry in your box. But if you don't have that and you can rather throw a couple of beads in to make a running swivel, so be it. Once again, just knot off on another swivel up the top end here. Always remember, wet your knots. Down. Kids, don't use your teeth to bite this off. I've done that, now I've got no teeth left. Okay, so you end up with that. It's a little bit longer, so your hook can't come and cause crap on your braid or your main line or anything like that. So from there, I just take some sinker line, whatever, lighter. This is just 20 pound. Tie off to your running swivel there. You're going to tie off to here with the sinker line. Here I like to use a little bit stronger sinker line because you're not going to be clipping or anything. And when you throw, you often put a lot of weight on the sinker, and you don't want it to crack off, and then you're left with a drift bait. Now this is the tricky part. So when you tie your sinker, I often just cut off a piece a little bit longer than my hook snoot, so I can actually make the knot. What you want to do is make this about the same length. The trick behind that is if it's not the same length, it tends to tangle up into the throw. When you throw it and they're the same length, they throw together. If one's shorter or one's longer, they tend to tangle up, so it affects your throw. So if you're trying to throw further, trying to be more accurate, those sorts of things, make it the same length. If you're throwing really close by, you can probably get a long way with a much longer snooting to your hook. But yeah, I just religiously throw it the same length. It just stops that tangling, stops everything. And that's why you've probably seen before, we use a lot of stopper knots. This time we're not using a stopper knot, we're actually putting a swivel there. And this is to help release tension against that live bait when he's swimming around. It just helps release that flow, and then you've got another swivel further up as well. It just releases all the coiling on the line, otherwise you ended up with it all coiled back together, and that's just a mess. Okay, so let's get back there. Sorry, tight quarters today, so the framing's not so great. Okay, so that comes out about the same length there. So now, depending on what sort of conditions you're fishing, you can either throw straight wire grab, or I like to throw a weed eater grab. I'm not such a fan of cones or pyramids or even bottle sinkers, because I find, for me especially, and I'm sure most other people out there, the live bait will actually pull that sinker around and move it, and then if it rolls at the wrong time and the swell catches it, then it's going to roll away. So like in amongst the rocks, if I'm fishing rocky holes, then I like a weed eater for obvious reasons. It sits in the cracks, it doesn't get stuck. And then where it's patchy sand or full sand, obviously the wire grab. Now the biggest trick is to set these wires, sit and fiddle with them and take them apart, bend them out until they trip properly. You don't want them tripping too hard, especially with live bait. Otherwise, that fish is going to start picking it up. You've got a little bit of respite with the limited slide, but still you can get that fish spitting that bait, especially when you're talking cob and garrick. They can be very finicky. Kingies, not so much. And then if flatfish climbs on, he normally climbs on. So that's a whole different story. So, for instance, I'll just use the weed eater because I end up fishing in the rocks a lot more. So I just want to just hold it in place, but then also give that fish the freedom to pick it up and move with it. Now, what I like to do as well, a little trick, is that once you're hooked up to the fish, you don't really want to lose the fish and get back the sinker. So there's the sinker on the line there. So about halfway down, I just tie a simple overhand or granny's knot, whatever you call it, literally like that. Just tie it in and cinch it down. Don't wet this. This is your break point. So if this gets stuck, that will break off there. That knot it's a very weak internally knot, and it'll just snap. So then you'll lose your sinker and you'll be able to fight the fish freely. So having a look at that trace, I stand back here a little bit. Sorry, I'm in the back office here. So if I stand back here, you can see that's the swivel here by me. Obviously you're going to your main line, your limited slide. That's about this, just longer than the same length. You see from the two hands there. And then down to the hook and the sinker, and they're very, very close to each other. Now the reason they're only that close is because your bait's going to make up the difference. You'll be bridling them onto here, so your bait will be, in essence, hold on, that's where your bait will be, in essence. I'll show you how to bridle one just now in a minute, and then we'll take it from there. So that's where your bait be. The rest of the prep for this, I'm going to show you quickly, is piece of Adcan, old braid, properly braided cord, so like a hollow core braid. This is Dyneema, I think it is, or something like that. Get this from the spearfishing shops. You can get some Adcan for those of the older guys. So what I like to do here is I'll take that braided rope there, and I just tie a knot in the top of it. Over a knot, it's just a stopper. So we'll cinch that down nice and tight, like that, and then snip it off. Get your lighter and melt that end down into the knot, like that, and then it looks like that. Whoops, not picking it up. Now I will do that again. I'll give myself a little bit of space, maybe 2 centimeters, 2.5 centimeters, an inch for those who think like that, maybe less. Just try and tie another knot in it, about maybe 2 centimeters with the knot. Alright, so just tie another knot. Trim that piece off. Down. Careful, if you don't wet your thumb, you're going to get burned. Right. So then I take the hook and I push it in between the fibers here. So you got half on one side and half on the other. I don't know if I can get close enough. I will just set this one up. I don't know if you can see there. It's sort of in between. I don't know if it can focus. Below the knot, as you can see, and then you just work it. Don't stab yourself with a hook, but work it over the barb. If you're fishing barbless, this will be a whole lot easier. Okay, over the barb, like that. Right. Now we're just going to repeat that on this end. Take it back. Halfway, about halfway again, work that over the barb. Not easy going a lot of the time, it takes a little bit of work. The braid is so tight on these strings, but once it comes over, there we are. So then you end up with a loop like that. That's very strong. It's not going to come off, unfortunately, if you're going to be fishing for sharks and stuff like that. Yes, they will bite through it. There are other ways to do it. I'm sure it will come up in another set of videos we've got planned, because there's a couple of other things I like fishing live bait. So it looks like that. You've got a tiny little loop there. So that's where you're going to bridle your bait to. Now, if you're fishing double J's, you would obviously be hooking your bait. I'll show you a quick demonstration of where you can hook your bait for different actions and stuff. Use these. But yeah, I'll be right back with how to bait it up. Alrighty, we're back. Okay, so I'm just going to use a little Mackie there for a demonstration there. So there we've got our bridle that we did earlier. Now, this is a bit bigger cable tie than I'm used to, but it should work because it's frozen, so it makes it a bit stiffer. So take your cable tie. I normally use the much smaller ones, skinnier ones, but this will work absolutely fine. If you've only got these, it'll be fine. And take your clippers, scissors, whatever, and just cut it off at a nice sharp angle, because that's too soft. Nice sharp angle, give it a snip. So then you end up with a little sharp. Guys, just remember, keep all your clippers, don't throw them down. All plastic, we don't need any more microplastics in the system. Yeah, so you got a nice sharp angle there. What you would do on your live bait is you take it just on top of the eye here and push it through. I'll see if I can do it. It's a little bit hard. Not this hard normally. Just under the eye there. So it goes through just under the eye. It doesn't harm your live bait. There's actually a little cavity there. And then you're going to push the cable tie through. Then what you do is you take the cable tie. I like to lay my hook so I know it's facing up. Just personal preference. I don't think it actually matters. Go through that loop like that. So it's sitting on there. Then I snug the cable tie up against the fish so I can obviously control it. And then back down and back through, and then zip your cable tie. Fairly snug, not too tight that you're going to break anything. So about that snug. Obviously with a slightly lighter cable tie, it'll be a bit easier. And then just take your snippers and snip it off as close as you can get it. Keep those pieces. So then you've got it looking like that. So that fish is free to move, your circle looks free, and you get a really good hookup rate with that. So yeah, that's about the limit I would go on an 8-0. If you're going any bigger on baits, I would go 9-0, then 10-0. Obviously this is a single hook, so you're letting that fish eat, but a circle hook works better like that. So yeah, that's how I like to fish them on a circle hook. Bridled, you can throw it really well. If you're sliding, you can even use this for sliding. The live bait lasts a long time, so it's quite effective. So if you were just hooking it, for instance, we'll snip that off so I can show you. So if you were just hooking it, there's a couple of different ways. So I'll just use the circle hook here. There's a little cavity just in front of the eye there. You can hook it just through there. That's quite strong, but it's a much lighter throw because you haven't got as much meat in it. Quite a bit of bone, so it could hook through quite nicely. That sits quite nicely. You can throw that, not too far, unfortunately, but you can throw it. And then if you're fishing a J hook, you could put that as your lead hook, your carrying hook, and then another hook down the back here, just under the skin. And I'm sure Ben has showed you his little T that he puts in. The other way of doing it is throwing it forward. So you put at the back fin here, most fish have got that back fin. Underneath there, you put the hook through the back of it there. and then that's quite a bit of meat, and it's behind the fin as well, so you can grab it just like that. This is often a bit more harmful in fish, but it does make them a bit more erratic. So if you're fishing in an area where you know there's a fish and you want a quick bite, this might work better. But once again, you've got to throw it quite lightly. Yeah, so this works better for sliding and those sorts of things. It does make the fish dance upwards. Yeah, it's quite effective, but your longevity will allow bait. Still the best way to go is bridling. Yeah, guys, if there's anything else you would like to know about or see, or something that we haven't covered, drop it down in the comments. Obviously, if you like it, give us a like. Follow the channel. We're on most of the Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, so we're there. Give us a like, and hopefully we'll see you in the shop soon or out on the beach.